Caitanya Mahaprabhu has so far explained to Sanātana Goswami that all the Vedic scriptures establish that one must take to the process of devotional service. And Caitanya Mahaprabhu has also established that any activity independent of bhakti is a waste of time. And Caitanya Mahaprabhu has explained how by executing bhakti in the association of devotees, one can cultivate that, one can develop the 26 qualities which we have just discussed. After describing the 26 qualities which we have discussed before the lunch session, Caitanya Mahaprabhu explains, quoting from the Bhagavatam 3rd canto, Titikshava karunikaha suda sarva dhainam ajata shatrava shanta sadva sadhu bhushana. Caitanya Mahaprabhu explains that a devotee must be titikshava. It means very forbearing. That means very tolerant. This is a quality that we have discussed. Then karunikaha. This means mercy. This quality also we have discussed this morning. Surda. Surda means well-wishers of everyone. So we have already discussed that quality by stating that a devotee has no enemy. So he's a well-wisher of everyone, including the animals and the ants. Ajata Shatrava. Devotee has no enemies. The non-devotee may consider the Hare Krishnas as enemy, but the Hare Krishnas have no enemy. A Vaishnava is always forgiving. In Prabhupada's life we saw how even if somebody had insulted him, Prabhupada was still ready to forgive him. And Sadhava, follow the instructions of the Shastras. This is very important. We must follow the scriptures. Dhammanti Sakshat Bhagavad Panitam. Religion means the words of God. So, if you don't follow the words of God, then you cannot advance on the path of religion. Therefore, devotees must study these books. Prabhupada said, I'm writing these books for whom? For my devotees to read and study. So we should study these books so that we get knowledge on how to make spiritual advancement. By reading these books, you understand the philosophy. And by applying the philosophy, your intelligence becomes sharp. And when your intelligence becomes sharp, then you can easily cut out Maya. Just like when you have a sharp blade. Just like the doctors. The doctors have such a sharp blade when they are doing your operation that it just touches the blade on the skin and the skin cuts. So by reading the scriptures, our intelligence will become so sharp that the moment Maya is beginning to touch it, it will be cut. Therefore, those devotees who read regularly, they have sharp intelligence. And those who don't read, they become victims of Maya. Just like in a material situation, if somebody has good academic education, then he can make progress in life. But if somebody doesn't have good academic education, then he doesn't get a good job. So similarly, if we know the scriptures well, then you can make spiritual progress. Otherwise, it is difficult. So, Caitanya Mahaprabhu said that all the scriptures say that by serving an advanced Vaishnava and associating with an advanced Vaishnava, one makes spiritual advancement. And by associating with materialistic people, then you walk on the path of darkness. So the devotee one who is serious about spiritual life, he wants to associate with the advanced souls and not materialistic people. How does one come to Krishna consciousness? Caitanya Mahaprabhu says, you come to Krishna consciousness by association with advanced devotees. Just like many of you may have come to Krishna consciousness by reading Prabhupada's books. So that was associating with a very advanced soul. Or you may come in Krishna consciousness by associating with some other devotee. So that is again association. So by association you come to Krishna consciousness, and then by further association you develop the strength to give up your sinful life. So Caitanya Mahaprabhu has very strongly emphasized associating with pure devotees who are free of sin. Therefore Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, the glorification of God must be heard from the mouth of pure devotees. Just like milk touched by a snake becomes poisonous, similarly the holy name of the Lord, when it is chanted by professional singers, it becomes poisonous or it becomes ineffective. So the Vaishnava, he avoids listening from non-devotees. Of course, you don't have this problem much in your country, but in countries like India, there are so many people, so many so-called famous singers who chant names of Krishna just to make money. but in private life they eat meat and they do everything bad. And there's so many so-called people, they may give lectures on Bhagavatam, but they have no character. So listening from such people will ruin your spiritual life. Satsanga Tyagai Vaishnava Chara Sri Sangi Eka Sadhu Krishna Bhakta Ara. Once again, Chaitanya, you just see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is verse after verse repeating only one point, isn't it? Just like in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is repeating the same point, that you are this dusha, you're not this body, again and again, again and again. With non-devotees who are attached to women and money, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, by associating with worldly minded people, all your good qualities will become destroyed. The 26 qualities which we have just discussed, plus spiritual intelligence, will all be destroyed, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, by associating with worldly minded people. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very strongly emphasizing we must choose our association. And yesterday, if you remember, I had discussed from Nectar of Instruction how one must choose one's association and associate with different people of different levels of realization. So especially Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, disassociate from those who are like toys in the hands of women. In other words, those men who are completely attached to just sex life. In the Caitanya Samhita, the Caitanya Samhita is one of the scriptures, it is said, it is better to accept the miseries of being behind bars and surrounded by burning fire than to associate with those who are not Krishna conscious. So it is said in the scripture, it is better to live behind bars and to have flames of fire all around you, rather than to associate with people who are not devotees. So one should give up all material attachment by taking shelter of Krishna without hesitation. This is important. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said without hesitation. That means without any doubt, with full conviction, take up Krishna consciousness. Sarva dharman parithaja mam ekam shanam rajaham tvam sarva pape vaya mokshyami masuchaha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted this very famous verse from the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And he told Sanātana Goswami, give up all varieties of religiousness and come to me and I will protect you. Krishna is very clearly stating, don't worship demigod, don't do any worship ancestors, don't worship anyone, just worship me, me, me. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is emphasizing, accept surrender to him at all cost. Bhakta Vatsala Kretana Smartha Vadanya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says the Lord Krishna is very kind to his devotees. He is always very grateful to his devotees. Therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says a learned person should never give up Krishna. Of course, as I said, in your country this is not a problem. But in countries like India, where people don't understand the difference between the Supreme God and demigods, it's a big problem because people think everybody's on the same level. Prabhupada used to give a nice story to us sometimes about how it is difficult to give up your bad habits, old habits. In Germany, there's a very famous school that teaches you how to play piano. Now when you go to that school, their first question they ask you, do you know how to play piano? And if you know how to play piano, you have to pay a very high fees. And if you don't know how to play piano, then you pay less fees. Why? Because if you know how to play piano, first they have to make you forget what you know and then teach you the new stuff. So all of you are fortunate, you just got exposed to Krishna and you're following Krishna. But people who come from like Indian background, they're exposed to so much of demigod worship that to convince them that Krishna is the supreme, it takes a little time. They're also used to have been brought up in an atmosphere where they are taught, oh, all these demigods, Supreme Lord, it's all one. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu uses the word Bhakta Vatsala. So Krishna has many names. One of Krishna's names is Bhakta Vatsala. Bhakta Vatsala means he is very kind to his devotees. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, please go and tell the whole world, my devotee will never perish. Kante pradijanahi na me bhakta pranashyati. My devotee will never perish. But Krishna, in order to protect his devotee, he sometimes even breaks his promise. Just like before the battle of Kurukshetra started, Krishna had promised the Kauravas and the Pandavas that he was not going to lift any arms. He was not going to use any weapons in the battle. The Kauravas, they decided to select all the famous generals and the latest in technology, latest arms on their side. And the Pandavas, they said, we want Krishna. So the battle of Kurukshetra had gone on for so many days, but Arjuna was still not killed. So Duryodhan was the greedy son of Dhritarashtra. He went to Bhismadev. Bhismadev was the biggest general of that time. So Dhritarashtra, Duryodhan went to Bhismadev and said, why is it that Arjuna still hasn't died? Why are you showing him special mercy? You are fighting on my side. He should have been killed by now. So Bhismadev, within his heart, he was on the side of the Pandavas. But because he had accepted the obligation of the Kauravas, he had to fight on their side. So now he was a Kshatriya. So his honor was being challenged. So Bhismadev said, now either Krishna will have to break his promise or Arjuna is going to die. Within his heart, Bhismadev knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Bhismadev prepared 4 very sharp arrows in the evening. The battle of Kurukshetra was a religious war, and it was fought under the highest spiritual standards. The 2 armies would fight against each other only in the daytime, and in the evening the 2 sides would eat together and play together. And if some soldier was not armed, he would not be attacked. And there was no question of ever attacking innocent citizens or old people or women or children. This is God-conscious civilization or Vedic civilization. Not like the present-day society where they throw bombs without discrimination and they attack in the night when people are sleeping. So Arjuna, Bhismadev had prepared 4 very sharp arrows, and he kept it outside his tent in the night. And he said, next day morning when I fight, I'm going to shoot these 4 arrows at Arjuna. So Arjuna, of course, was not an ordinary devotee. He knew what Bhismadev was planning on doing. So in the night, Arjuna stole the 4 arrows. Next day morning when Bhismadev got up and the war was about to start, he saw that those arrows were stolen. So Bhismadev knew this was Arjuna's trick. So Bhismadev said, now I am going to fight so valiantly, so bravely, that Krishna will have to break his promise or his friend Arjuna was going to die. So Bhismadev fought so bravely that Krishna saw that Arjuna was about to die. Because Krishna was Arjuna's chariot driver. So Krishna was watching everything that's taking place. So when Krishna saw that Arjuna's life was in danger, he jumped from his chariot. He ran with his Sudarshan Chakra, even his dhoti, the top fell off from his body, and he confronted Bhismadev, and then Bhismadev could not kill Arjuna. And when Bhismadev saw Krishna in front of him, he said, this is what I wanted. I wanted to see the Lord face to face and to prove to the whole world that even if Krishna has to break his promise, he will break his promise, but he will protect his devotee. So the point that we are making is that Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala. Bhakta Vatsala means very dear to his devotee. Priyadani. Another word that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu uses was Kratagya. Kratagya means grateful. So Krishna is very grateful to his devotees. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a very nice story of Durvasa Muni and Amrish Maharaj. Durvasa Muni was a very powerful yogi. He was such a powerful yogi that even if he was miles away from you, he could know what you are doing. Are any of you yogis like that? Durvasa Muni, even if he was 10 miles from here, he would know what you are doing in this room. Maybe our 20th century detectives should learn this art of becoming powerful yogis like Durvasa Muni. You see, Srimad Bhagavatam has information for everyone, even for the detectives. So Durvasa Muni was a very powerful yogi, and Amrish Maharaj was a very powerful devotee. So Amrish Maharaj was the king of the world, but at the same time he was completely God conscious. So Amrish Maharaj was about to break his fast when Durvasa Muni walked into his palace. So Amrish Maharaj said, please come and join me, we will eat prasad together. Durvasa Muni said, let me just go and have my bath in the Ganga and I'm coming back in few minutes. So Durvasa Muni went to have his bath in the Ganga, but he felt in samadhi. So he forgot that in 1 minute he has to go back to Amrish Maharaj. So Amrish Maharaj was getting, it was time to break the fast. And Amrish Maharaj was getting worried what to do. So he consulted his Brahmins. And the Brahmins said, because if you fast and you do not break the fast before a certain time, then that fast is wasted. So the Brahmin said, okay, because you have called the Vasa Muni for lunch and he still hasn't come, you can drink water. Because drinking water, you will break the fast, but at the same time, your guest, the Vasa Muni, will not feel bad because it is not considered food as such. So as soon as Amrish Maharaj had water to drink, the Vasa Muni, because he was a powerful yogi, he knew that Amrish Maharaj has drunk water. So the Vasa Muni said, I'm going to teach this king a lesson now. A devotee of the Lord has no enemies. But this does not mean that the non-devotees don't consider the devotees as enemies. The Vasa Muni was very envious in his heart that Amrish Maharaj was so respected. Just like the karmis can never understand how these Hare Krishna devotees are living. Prabhupada used to say in 1970, Prabhupada purchased a very big church in Los Angeles, America. So there all our big temples have 20, 30, 40 cars and trucks and so on. So our Los Angeles temple had many trucks, Sankirtan vans. So the karmis are wondering, where do these Hare Krishnas get their money from? But Krishna provides. Just like I see your Soviet Hare Krishna devotees seem to be doing pretty well also. So Krishna provides. So Amrish Maharaj, the Vasa Muni was very envious of Amrish Maharaj. So he said, I am going to teach this king a lesson. So he went to the king and from his fika, he produced a demon. Amrish Maharaj did not get scared at all. Here was Durvasa with a demon, and with a demon he was going to burn with the fire. The demon had so much fire that just with the heat of that you could get burned in 1 minute. So Amrish Maharaj, he did not get disturbed at all. So Krishna saw that this yogi Durvasa was trying to burn his beloved devotee Amrish. So then Krishna released his Sudarshan Chakra. And the Sudarshan Chakra produces so much heat that even the sun doesn't produce as much heat as the Sudarshan Chakra does. So Durvasa Muni started running, and wherever he ran, the Sudarshan Chakra was behind him. Durvasa Muni went to Lord Brahma. He was a yogi. So from the earth planet, he flew to Brahma's planet. In the modern Air Force, people parachute from up to down. But they don't have in modern Air Force people who parachute from down to up. Isn't it? Am I right? So Durvasa Muni, however, was a yogi. So he parachuted right from the earth to Lord Brahma's planet. So he went to Brahma and said, please excuse me. I was trying to offend this devotee of Lord Krishna, Amrish Maharaj. Now the Sudarshan Chakra is chasing me wherever I go. Please save me from the heat of the Sudarshan Chakra. Brahmaji said, I'm sorry. I can't do anything. He said, that is Krishna Sudarshan Chakra. What can I do in front of that? Then he went to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva also said, sorry, cannot help you. But because the Vasa Muni was a very powerful yogi, he managed to reach Vaikuntha. So he went to the Lord and he said, please excuse me for the offense I made at your feet of your devotee. Then Lord Krishna said, I cannot excuse you also. He said, my devotee is more powerful than me. You have to go to my Priyadane. The Lord said, my devotees will sacrifice everything for my pleasure. They gave up their wives, their children, their house, everything for me. So I live in their heart and they live in my heart. So please understand this statement. The Lord told Durvasa, I live in the heart of my devotee and my devotee lives in my heart. That means the devotee and the Lord live together. So here it is said Kṛtagya. Kṛtagya means very grateful. So Krishna never forgets his devotees. In the material world, doesn't matter how much you help somebody else, tomorrow that person will be ungrateful. Do you know why all over the world today people are fond of keeping dogs and cats? You want to know why? I saw in your country also more and more people are keeping dogs now. So basically everybody has a tendency to control. But in society today the condition is such that everyone is a rebel. Everyone is rebelling against the other person. But at the same time everybody has a desire to control. So the parents bring up the children, but the children when they get older, they say bye-bye. And everybody says Sudanya to everybody else. So at least when you keep the dog or cat, they will listen to you. The children don't listen to you after they get older. Your employees don't listen to you. Nobody listens to you. But a dog or cat, you say, whatever you say, they listen to you. And you have to listen to them. So in the material world, basically nobody is grateful to each other. But Krishna is very grateful to his devotee. Just say, Krishna agreed to become the chariot driver of Arjuna. Caitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to a temple in South India. And when he was coming out of the temple, he saw there was one Brahmin there with Bhagavad Gita in front of him upside down. And he was just crying. And people were standing in the front and just laughing. So Caitanya Mahaprabhu stopped over there to see, why is everybody laughing? Then Caitanya Mahaprabhu went closer to that man who had the Bhagavad Gita upside down, and Caitanya Mahaprabhu saw that this man had Gita in front of him upside down and he's crying. So Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, why are you crying? He said, when I think about the fact that Krishna, the Supreme Lord, became the chariot driver of Arjuna, and seeing the humble position taken by God, I'm just crying. And then Caitanya Mahaprabhu, still, why are you crying? What is the need to cry? My spiritual master told me to read one chapter of the Gita every day. But I'm uneducated, I cannot read. But I'm just thinking day and night how Krishna, the Supreme Lord, became the chariot driver of Arjuna. And just thinking of this, my heart is weeping. Then Caitanya Mahaprabhu embraced that Brahmin and said, you have really understood the Bhagavad Gita. Because this man had understood that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But to serve his devotee, he became his chariot driver. So we are discussing this one point, that Krishna is grateful to his devotee and he never abandons his devotee. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, I don't know in Soviet Union, but all over the world, people have so many romantic magazines about stories of so many movie stars and politicians, their private lives, and the karmis, they love to discuss these stories. But the devotees take interest in Krishna Katha. Sometimes when people ask why did Krishna appear, the natural answer that everybody gives, to kill the demons. But Krishna did not appear to kill the demons. Krishna wants to kill the demons. He can arrange an earthquake or heart attack. Like the modern day demons, they are dying due to natural reasons and heart attacks, isn't it? Krishna is not personally coming to kill them. Krishna appears to create Krishna Katha, which his devotees should discuss and relish. So if you know Krishna Katha, then your mind will not think of lust. So King Bharat was the king of the world. At one time this whole planet was called Bharatvarsha. Today the Bharat means India, but the India of today is only a tiny portion of what the India was at one time. So King Bharat was young, handsome, beautiful wife, nice children and all the wealth. But still he was not attached to all this. So King Bharat, he gave up his wife, children, everything at a young age. He gave up all this and he went to the forest to practice meditation. So in the forest one day, he saw that one she-deer was running very fast, and while running she gave birth to a baby deer and she died. So the baby deer was brought up by King Bharat, and he gradually got very, very attached to that deer. King Bharat used to make that baby deer sleep with him, eat with him, and if for 1 minute the deer would go out of sight, he would get worried. Just like when a mother has a young child, the moment the child is out of sight, the mother gets nervous. So One day the young deer was out of sight, and King Bharat, while searching for the deer, he died, thinking of the deer. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Bhagavad Gita states, wherever your mind is at the moment of death, that is where you will go. So somebody may say, oh, this is very simple. All my life let me do sense enjoyment, but at the moment of death I'll think of Krishna, so I'll go back to Krishna. But it is not so easy. At your moment of death, your mind will be where you have been all your life. Just like if you have not studied, you can't expect to sit in the exams and come out and pass. So King Bharat in his next life became a deer. But because he had also done devotional service in the past, his devotional service did not go in vain, and very soon he took his birth in a Brahman's family. When he took his birth in a Brahman's, this story is very important, so please hear it carefully. So when he took his birth in a Brahman's family, he had made up his mind that now I'm not going to repeat the same mistake that I made before. In English there's a saying, once burned, twice shy. That is, once you've been cheated by someone, once you've burned your hands, you're not going to try that thing again. So Jat Bharata had made up his mind that now I'm not going to repeat the same mistake that I made before. So he was very, very serious. He was pretending in society as if he was deaf and dumb, as if he didn't have ears to hear and tongue to speak. Actually, Jat Bharata was not deaf and dumb. He was just acting deaf and dumb because he did not want to get involved in anything material again. So Jat Bharata, one day, he was guarding a paddy field and he was kidnapped by the dacoits. And the dacoits, they wanted to offer Jat Bharata to goddess Kali, because their thinking was if they offer him to goddess Kali, then their dacoit chief will have a nice son. So Jat Bharata, however, did not get scared. Just like Amrish Maharaj did not get scared from the Durvasa Muni's demon, Jat Bharata did not get scared from the plan of these dacoits to kill him and offer him to goddess Kali. So what happened? As the dacoits were getting ready to cut Jat Bharata's neck, the deity Kali came out, goddess Kali came out from the deity, and she with the same knife, she cut the dacoits and saved Jat Bharata. So Jat Bharata was protected because this goddess Kali, she killed the dacoits and saved Jat Bharata. So this is another story from the Bhagavatam to show how Krishna always protects his devotees. The Pandavas had to go through so many difficulties, just like you Hare Krishna devotees in Soviet Union had to be in prison for some time. The Pandavas had to also go through so many trials. When they were young, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana were thinking, now let's kill them. Why? Greed. They were greedy. Narada Muni says in the Bhagavatam, a hungry man can be satisfied when you give him food to eat. A thirsty man can be satisfied when you give him water to drink. Angry man can be satisfied when you give him a chance to shout. Sometimes one devotee is very angry at another devotee, but the moment you shout at the other devotee, your anger is gone. But Narada Muni says a greedy man can never be satisfied. So, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana were very greedy. Actually, the Pandava's father was King Pandu. Dhritarashtra would have become the king, but Dhritarashtra, because he was blind, his younger brother Pandu became the king. But Pandu died at a young age. So, the Dhritarashtra was just like looking after the young children and looking after King Pandu's kingdom till the children grew older. Just like sometimes you may be going to India or somewhere to travel, and you take your suitcase and keep it in your friend's house and say, please keep it till I come back. But if the friend says, no, you didn't even give me the suitcase, then he's a cheater. No? But if your friend says, you did not even leave the suitcase with me, when you had left the suitcase with him, then he's a cheater. So Dhritarashtra was put in charge of the Pandavas in the kingdom, but he was thinking, if these Pandavas were killed, so he was constantly making plans how to kill the Pandavas. So he fed them poison. Once they were living in a house made of lac. Dhritarashtra said, I have made a very nice house for you, my dear children. please live in this house. So the Pandavas were young. They said, okay, Kṛṣṇa. But Vidura was Dhritarashtra's stepbrother. So Vidura knew that Dhritarashtra's trick was to burn the house. So Vidura gave the Pandavas secret information. So the Pandavas, they made an underground tunnel, and from the underground tunnel they ran away. So Dhritarashtra burned the house, and Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana were so happy. They said, now the Pandavas are finished. And Dhritarashtra even performed the funeral rites, because he was the eldest man in the family. But he did not know that the Pandavas were all alive. They had run away. So the Pandavas were put through so many difficulties, but Kṛṣṇa always protected them. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, he was thrown from mountain top. He was put in boiling oil. He was administered poison. He was beaten, bang, 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 bang. But still, he was protected by Kṛṣṇa. So you may say, oh, this is okay, but we are not Prahlad, we are not Pandavas, so what about our position? You may say, we are not Ambrish Maharaj, we are not Jadbhat, we are not the Pandavas, we are not Kunti Devi, we are not Prahlad. Now how much insurance do we get? How much insurance coverage do we have? So the insurance coverage you will have is in proportion to the premium that you pay. In your country, do you have insurance? People can buy auto insurance, life insurance. Okay. So just like your insurance policy depends upon the premium you pay, the coverage you get from Kṛṣṇa depends on the premium you pay. So we should be fully confident that if you go through some difficulties to follow Kṛṣṇa's instructions, Kṛṣṇa is not going to leave you alone. Caitanya Mahaprabhu then proceeded to describe to Sanātana Goswami 6 principles of spiritual surrender. The 6 principles of spiritual surrender are as follows. The devotee must accept everything favorable for spiritual advancement, just like a businessman. A businessman will only do that transaction in which he can make profit, not where there is any loss. So, Caitanya Mahaprabhu says, one should accept in spiritual life only that situation which will help him to achieve Kṛṣṇa Prem and not which is bad. He must reject everything unfavorable. This is called renunciation. Renunciation means you give up what is unfavorable for spiritual advancement. If you don't have to give up anything, then where is the tyaga or renunciation? So renunciation means you do what you don't want to do. So in spiritual life, you accept everything favorable, you reject everything unfavorable. Just like when you go for an operation to the hospital, naturally when the operation is being done, it pains, it gives you pain. But you're willing to tolerate the pain. Why? Because this pain in the long run will give you happiness. So in the Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter, Kṛṣṇa talks about 3 types of happiness. Happiness in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. Happiness in the mode of goodness is which in the beginning may be bitter, but in the end becomes sweet, and which wakes you up to self-realization. Happiness in the mode of passion is that in the beginning is sweet, but in the end is bitter. Material life is very sweet in the beginning, but in the end it is bitter. It is just like a chewing gum. You have chewing gums in your here in this. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully now you people don't eat chewing gums, but I'm sure at one time you must have eaten chewing gums. I of course never ate chewing gums. So a chewing gum when you take, in the beginning it is sweet, but then within minutes it becomes sour and then you throw it out. And in your country the chewing gums in the beginning are sweet and then it turns sour. That is exactly what material life is. In the beginning it is sweet, but in the end it is bitter. Just like when you have an itching sensation, skin disease. So you feel like scratching when you have the skin disease. But the more you scratch, the more serious your disease will become. Am I right? Are you a doctor? Any doctors in this room? So the more you scratch, the more serious it becomes. So that is exactly what sense gratification is. You engage in all these illicit activities, and then you have disease like AIDS and so on. Like now in the Western society, they're so worried about AIDS. So when you break the laws of God, this is what will happen. You want to eat a lot of beef, meat, fine, then have cancer. You want to smoke, fine, smoke. Then tomorrow have cancer and lung cancer. So it doesn't matter what sense enjoyment you do. You want to drink a lot of vodka, drink. then die of heart attack. So, sense gratification is always bitter. So when you have to give up something, naturally there will be some pain. But for a higher goal, you should be willing to give it up. Third principle of surrender is, have firm faith that Krishna will always protect me. A devotee wants to remain always in the Lord's service, and even if a devotee is in difficulty, he does not abandon Krishna. Caitanya Mahaprabhu, playing the role of a devotee, in his Sikshastaka slokas he says, my dear Lord, even if you trample me to death, you will remain my worshipper Lord unconditionally. The fifth principle is to understand that all of one's desires can only be fulfilled by Krishna. The devotee is completely dependent upon Krishna for everything. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that even if you have material desires, come to me. Don't go to the demigods. And the sixth principle of surrender is to be humble and meek. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was telling Sanātana Goswami how one must completely take shelter of Krishna. After explaining surrender to Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then proceeds to explain the regulative principles that we must follow. Are you devotees appreciating this Krishna Katha, Chaitanya Katha? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained that without following regulative principles, you cannot develop love of God. So just like sometimes people say, okay, you want to love God, why do you have to follow some rules and regulations? You have to follow rules and regulations even for walking on the road. You can't walk naked on the road even if you want to walk naked. So similarly, rules and regulations must be there for developing love of God. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized the process of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means rules, regulations. Just like we have rules like, Mangalarti, Guru Puja, class. When you have your temple, you will know all this. So we follow these rules and regulations because by following these rules and regulations, you can get purified. Just like within a piece of wood, there is fire. Do you know that there is fire in wood? Because there is fire in wood, the moment you light matchstick, the fire comes. Just like when the baby is growing, the parents know that the baby has strength to walk in the legs. So the parents, the moment the baby reaches 8 months, the parents begin to train the baby at 8 months how to walk. Why? Because they know the baby has the ability to walk. So similarly, devotional service is in everyone's heart. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunaya Karnavani Sudha 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐿𝐿. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, love for Krishna is lying dormant in everyone's heart. But when the heart is purified by chanting and hearing, then the natural love is woken up again. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Sanātana that there are two processes for waking up this love of God. One is regulative principles, and then second stage is spontaneous love for God. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained by following the process of Vaidhi Bhakti, because spontaneous service to God or Ragunaga Bhakti is an advanced stage of devotional service. So you can only reach that advanced stage after you have executed devotional service. So that execution of rules and regulations is known as Vaidhi Bhakti. Just like you learn how to use a typewriter, then you know how to type. So before you get to the stage where you can never live without Krishna for 1 second, like a fish cannot live out of water, you must follow rules and regulations, Vaidhi Bhakti. So Vaidhi Bhakti, rules and regulations, is very necessary. Otherwise we cannot cleanse the heart. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, all the rules mentioned in the scriptures should be the servants of these two principles. In other words, the rules and regulations of scriptures must be followed in order to succeed on the path of Vaidhi Bhakti. These rules and regulations of the scriptures, they must become servants of Vaidhi Bhakti and of the process of Vaidhi Bhakti and Ragunuga Bhakti. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described to Sanātana Goswami how to execute regulative principles, how to execute devotional service. Guru Padashraya Diksha Gauru Sevana Sardhama Siksha Pracha Sadhu Mraganu Gamama. First, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, one must accept a bona fide spiritual master. Therefore, Krishna also gave the example by accepting Sandipani Muni as a bona fide spiritual master. We are ready to learn, take a master for anything we want to learn. But for spiritual life, we think we don't need a master. So Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, one must accept a bona fide spiritual master to be guided on the spiritual path. Second point of surrender, he says, accept initiation from him. Third point, serve him. Fourth, receive instructions from the spiritual master and make inquiries in order to learn the art of devotional service. So, next, follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas and follow the direction given by the spiritual master. Next, one should be prepared to give up anything for Krishna's advancement. For advancement in devotional service. One must live in a place where Krishna is present. So you don't have to necessarily go to Vrindavan or Mathura to live. Because wherever Krishna is present, that place becomes Vrindavan. So Prabhupada took Vrindavan to the whole world. Then one should acquire a livelihood that is just sufficient to keep body and soul together. In other words, if one is a grihastha, he has to engage in some occupation. But one should engage in an occupation in such a way that he can get his livelihood by simple means. In other words, one should not have to work day and night to earn money for his maintenance, and then he has no time for spiritual life. One must fast on Ekadasi days. Then give up the association of non-devotees. One should not accept unlimited disciples. One should not study many scriptures and then get confused. Prabhupada did not want the devotees of ISKCON to read books other than his. Like sometimes devotees have a habit, especially those who read English, to read books by other acharyas and other philosophers and so on. That will confuse you. Just read Prabhupada's books and you're on the safe platform. Then one should treat loss and gain equally. Generally we are happy when we get something what we want, and we are sad when we lose something. If you make a big business profit, but a devotee should be equal in both positions. What does she want? Overwhelmed by lamentation. In other words, lamentation means you're always feeling sorry. Oh, why I did not do this, why I did not do that. The devotee should not be like that. If something is lost, you should just accept it as the will of the Lord and forget it. The devotee should not worship demigods, but at the same time he should not disrespect them. The devotee should not hear Lord Vishnu or his devotees being criticized. The devotee should avoid reading newspapers about love stories of different people. A devotee neither should through the mind or through action should cause anxiety to anyone. So even if you get something, but by your action you're causing pain to somebody else, you should avoid it. So these were some of the items which Caitanya Mahaprabhu said one should do for making spiritual advancement. And Caitanya Mahaprabhu again said one should associate with devotees, chant the holy name of the Lord. Here Srimad Bhagavatam. Reside in a place where Krishna is worshipped and worship the Murti with love. And by doing these 5 items, you'll definitely awaken love of God. One should taste the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees. One should chant the holy name in the association of devotees. Caitanya Mahaprabhu says that even without faith, if you execute these guidelines, you'll make spiritual advancement. Just like fire, anybody who places his hand on fire will get the hand burnt. So similarly, anybody who takes advantage of this will get the perfection of life. So I think I'll stop at this, Hare Krishna.
If he unwillingly becomes a witness of, when one devotee offends another, it is said that we should not tolerate offenses of another. What should we do in such case? What should we do if we hear offenses when one devotee offends another?
Well, you should tell the devotee not to do like this, or go away from that situation.
Is it difficult for you to do your mission in South Union now?
It is difficult for me to do my mission in your country. I'm hoping by Lord Nrsingadev's mercy it will not be difficult, because Prabhupada had sent me to preach over here in 76, so I'm trying to do it, and I hope by Lord Nrsingadev's mercy there will be no difficulty. And you can also pray to Lord Nrsingadev that there may be no difficulty.
The question is, how can he combine two things, his karmic job in which he have a gift and devotional service, in order to avoid maybe some demonism, maybe, I don't know.
Chant Hare Krishna. Just like yesterday I saw it was raining in your city of Kyiv. So everybody was walking with an umbrella. In the morning when you leave home and it's cloudy, you leave home with a raincoat or an umbrella. So in Kali Yuga, our umbrella is Hare Krishna mantra.
He's saying there is one point, don't tolerate the criticizing of the Lord and His devotees. But sometimes during the book distribution, some people criticize.
Well, what can you do when the karmis do, but at least devotees should not do it? Is that your question? That if we are out on book distribution and the karmis criticize, then what should he do?
The question is, can the devotee somehow to break some laws of state, for devotional service? For example, trying to avoid, service in the army.
These questions you should ask your temple authorities, not the guru.
The question is, bhajan means some revelation. Like a part of Vaikuntha or spiritual world, which Krishna reveals to his devotee. And in this connection, what it means bhajan kutir, where devotees, glorify Krishna.
Bhajan is glorification of Krishna. Bhajan kutir generally means a place where somebody goes to chant and read. So the moment your bhajan kutir is your house.
How many runs did Prabhupada recommended to chant for sannyasis?
You'll be surprised when I tell you the answer. Same as for the new bhaktas, 16. So the sannyasis are the same level as the new bhaktas. If they want, they can do more, but the minimum standard is the same. But sannyasi has other guidelines that he must follow. No association with women, being fully absorbed in devotional service.
He is asking about, spreading of Krishna consciousness in Albania and Israel.
In Israel, we have a very big group. We have a temple in Tel Aviv.
What does it mean to be fully absorbed in devotional service, you said?
It means to be always engaged in activities of devotional service. The mind should be thinking of Krishna, the tongue should be talking about Krishna, the leg should be walking for Krishna, the hand should be working for Krishna, all the organs should be working for Krishna.
He's asking about realization of one of ideas of Srila Prabhupada about constructing spiritual city in India.
And Mayapur. Yes, we are doing that now. We have started work on it. Next time I come, I'll bring a slideshow on the temples in India.
He's asking about spiritual world. What does it mean?
Spiritual?
World.
World.
Yeah. What does it mean, full knowledge and full bliss? What does mean full bliss and what does mean full knowledge? What do the liberated soul know something special?
Full knowledge means you are fully convinced Krishna is the Supreme. Full bliss. So that means a devotee only looks to Krishna for happiness. He doesn't try to find happiness by getting Krishna also some material things.
He wants to know more details because even here we can understand.
Okay, let me explain. Getting full bliss means a devotee does not have to turn to illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, meat eating for finding happiness. He gets all his happiness in chanting, hearing and preaching. Like we, the conditioned souls, we cannot be happy unless he gets sex life, unless he gets intoxication, unless he goes and dances and so on. Just like a materialist. For a karmi to start dancing, he must have a lot of liquor, he must have saxophone, band, it must be night, and then if there's a girl around, then he'll go out dancing. But for a devotee to start dancing, he gets up at 4:30 in the morning and he begins to dance in front of Krishna. Have you ever seen a karmi dance at 4:30 in the morning? I have only seen karmis dance when they have liquor and a band accompanying them and women around them. But a devotee begins to dance the moment he gets up at 4:30.
You want to know about spiritual world? How do the souls live in the spiritual world?
In the spiritual world, the souls live in complete harmony. There is no misunderstanding between them because everybody is focused on Krishna. The men are more handsome than the men on this planet, and the women are 1,000 times more beautiful than the women on this planet. Still, the Mr. Handsome men, the handsome men don't look at the beautiful woman, and the beautiful women don't look at the handsome man.
What is the need of men and women in the spiritual world?
Because you can see how, if one is absorbed in service to Krishna, then he is not attracted by the opposite sex. And the men and women in the spiritual world are an example of this. The biggest weakness is lust. So you can see how in the spiritual world where one is fully absorbed in service to Krishna, lust has no influence at all.
But why do some souls fall down if they're full belief and full knowledge?
Because there are always some people who make a mistake. But the number of people who don't fall down are more than the number of people who fall down. Just like the number of people who are walking as free citizens in the streets of Kyiv are definitely more than the number of people who are in jail and who are behind prisons in Kyiv.
The question is, why the Vedic culture, so authoritative and so on, so perfect, degraded?
The Vedic culture got degraded because there were very few sincere preachers left. Those who were preaching Vedic culture, the Brahmanas, they became cheaters themselves. Just like there are so many people who translated the Bhagavad Gita, but did that Bhagavad Gita produce any spiritual children? Just like if a man is potent and if he has sex life, there will be children. So a preacher must be potent, and if he is pure, then he can inspire others to purity.
So where does the soul stay after the death and before the birth in this period?
After death, the soul enters into another womb, which is decided by your karma. Just like when you are walking, you don't lift 1 foot off the ground till your other feet is on the ground. So death doesn't come till your next body has been decided.
In the spiritual world, does the soul get the body which he desired or which Krishna desired?
Yes, it's your desire. You can be a cow, you can be a tree, you can be a male, female, anything, one of the plants, one of the roses, one of the lotuses. Sure.
Is it enough to simply chant japa and accept prasadam to go to the spiritual world?
If you chant around sincerely, avoid 10 offenses and just take prasad and read Prabhupada's books and associate with devotees, it's enough. You don't have to take sannyas. A person can stay even in the Grihastha ashram and be a good Grihastha and go back to Goddess. So easy. Caitanya Mahaprabhu was once traveling in southern India. So one Brahmin Grihastha by the name of Kurma Das came running behind him. He said, I'm very tired of staying at home. I'm fried with Grihastha life. I want to join you. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no, go back home. Worship Radha Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, follow rules and regulations, and in this way you will never be separated from me.
It is practically impossible to fall down from the spiritual world. Does it mean that conditioned souls in material world, besides those who come here with some mission, never were in the spiritual world?
No, we have all fallen from the spiritual world. The point is, in general, you don't fall down. But sometimes there will always be some people making mistakes. But now that you've made a mistake and you've come down and you've seen there's no happiness, now when you go back, you will want to stay there.
The question was about Krishna Loka. Usually it is said that only from Brahma Jyoti heroes fall down, but not from Krishna Loka. Is it true?
No, not from Krishna Loka, but you can fall down from the higher planets. Generally no, but sometimes people do fall down. So, I was going to tell you a story. The moral of the story is how once you have tasted the bitterness of material life, you will not want material life again. Once Prabhupada had gone with his son to visit a friend of his. So in India, they have these fans because it is very warm, and they have table fans. You know, table fan is fan on the table that goes all around. So yes. Prabhupada's son wanted to put his hand inside the fan. He was curious, like all children are curious. So every time he would put his hand outside, Prabhupada would pull it back. So Prabhupada's friend said, okay, let him put the hand. So Prabhupada's son put the hand inside, and his hand got hit by the blade so hard that then he pulled it back for crying. So then Prabhupada's friend told him, okay, put your hand out again. He said no. He said no. So Prabhupada used to tell us this story. Prabhupada used to tell us this story to show, similarly when you come to the material world from the spiritual world, you came thinking there'll be happiness. Now you've seen there's no happiness. So now if you're intelligent, you will not want to stay here, but you'll go back to the spiritual world. So I think we've had enough. You have a question? No. We had enough discussion. So we will end with about 10, I'll speak for the next 10-15 minutes on book distribution, Prabhupada and all that, okay? So we all know that book distribution was very dear to Prabhupada. Yesterday did I explain how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would send all his associates? So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he also used to send his followers to go out and do book distribution in Navadvip, Mayapur. And his devotees would go out, come back after distributing few copies, few paisas. Few paisa is equal to half a kopeck, and he will be very satisfied. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had told Prabhupada that if you ever have money, print and distribute books. Prabhupada's mission was to take Lord Chaitanya's teachings to beyond the borders of India. Krishna makes his devotee do what he cannot do. What he doesn't do, not he cannot do. Why? Because he wants to give the credit to his devotee. Krishna made Arjuna the hero by giving him the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Lord Chaitanya was ready to kill Jagai and Madai, but Lord Chaitanya made Nityananda the hero for having saved Jagai and Madai. When Sita was kidnapped, Hanuman was very angry. I think somebody asked me that question yesterday. Somebody asked. Anyway, Hanuman was very angry, but Hanuman jumped over the whole Indian Ocean in one jump. But when Lord Ram had to go over the Indian Ocean, he had to make bridges to go. So if Hanuman can jump, you think Ram cannot? But Ram walked over a bridge and crossed the ocean, and Hanuman in one jump he crossed over. So similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took Krishna consciousness within the borders of India. But he left it up to Prabhupada to take the Krishna consciousness to every corner of the world. After all, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had predicted Prithivite Achijata Nagaradigam Sarvata Pachara Oive Moranam. One day in every town and village of the world I will be known by my name. Somebody had to appear to make that prediction come true. And that somebody was Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was born during the birthday celebrations of Lord Krishna. And Prabhupada appeared in the year 1896. The same year that Thakur Bhaktivinoda sent the book on the life of Lord Chaitanya to universities outside India. So Prabhupada emphasized preaching because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has again and again emphasized the importance of preaching. Just like this morning we read that Sanātana Goswami, when he was in jail, he told the Mahamdan, jail keeper, if anybody releases somebody who is in prison condition, then he becomes very dear to Krishna. So one who engages in preaching, he becomes very dear to Krishna. Krishna recognizes every devotee, but he especially recognizes a preacher. Because when you go out preaching, book distribution, you are completely at the mercy of Krishna and Guru. Suppose you're given a job to cook in the temple or to sweep the floor or to cut vegetables. That is not difficult. Even though for everything you need Krishna's blessing, but to cut vegetables or sweep the floor or cook, it is not so difficult. It is mechanical. Whether the other person takes a book from you or no, is that in your hand? It's in the hand of the other person, isn't it? You may tell him very nicely, my dear Lord and Master, I beg you, please take this Bhagavad Gita, only 25 rubles. But if he is not in a good mood, if he is not inclined spiritually, say, get out. So when you go out preaching, you are like in the battleground. So Prabhupada used to say, if a general dies at home, nobody recognizes him. But if a soldier dies fighting in the battle, then he gets a gold medal. So Prabhupada always used to say he would like to die fighting, like to die preaching for Krishna. So preaching is an activity that brings one very near to Krishna. Don't think that Krishna is not in anxiety. Krishna is in a lot of anxiety. What is his anxiety? How to bring the conditioned souls back to him. This is Krishna's headache. You and I have a headache. How am I going to buy a new car? How am I going to get a trip abroad? How am I going to get a nice wife or children and so on? But Krishna's headache is different. So Krishna's headache is how to bring his lost children back to him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was talking to Haridas Thakur, he said, Haridas, how will all these Yavanas be saved? These Yavanas are disrespectful to the Vedic culture and they're killing the cows. Haridas Gwarit, he said, Prabhu chinta na karya. My dear Lord, please do not worry. Ha Ram balikaye nama bhase. By chanting the names of Krishna, they'll all get saved. Just like suppose a mother loses a child in the road and you find that child and bring it back to the mother. Will the mother not be very grateful to you? Suppose you have no eyes and a doctor does the operation and gives your eyesight back. Will you not be grateful to him? Similarly, Krishna is very grateful when any conditioned soul helps bring another conditioned soul back. Presently, the society is like crows. So, you may know that the crows are attracted to garbage and the swans are attracted to something clean. So, Prabhupada used to say our business is to convert the crows into swans. Just like before, we were all attracted to crows. We were all like crows, isn't it? We were all eating, devotees were eating meat, intoxication, illicit sex and so on. Now they're trying to become like swans. They're developing good spiritual habits. So, Prabhupada used to encourage the devotees to go out and preach. Preaching is what makes a Vaishnava dear to Krishna. Prabhupada encouraged book distribution because he said these books will one day become the law books of the world. Just like at lunchtime, I was speaking to the major while eating prasad, and he told me how he's a professor, how he preaches. So these books will one day become the law books of the world. So these books contain information for the whole civilization. These books are so powerful that even if somebody touches these books, he can get a human birth again. And if somebody takes these books home, then even if he doesn't read it today, he'll read it tomorrow. In your country, people are very fond of reading. People love to read philosophy in your country. Your country has produced so many philosophers. But who can be a bigger philosopher than Krishna? Krishna can defeat every argument. So, by engaging in book distribution, we are giving Prabhupada and the whole disciplic succession an opportunity to go into the heart of the conditioned soul and preach to him. Wake up, wake up, wake up. So Prabhupada is watching the activities of all you devotees from his Vaikuntha position. Prabhupada, when he was on the planet, his secretary would bring the mail. The first thing that Prabhupada would say is, show me Sankirtan newsletter. How many books given in different parts of the world? So, one who preaches, one who undergoes difficulties on behalf of the Lord, he is never forgiven by the Lord. When the Rasa Muni went to the Lord, what did the Lord say? He said, my devotees, they give up everything for me. So I can never forget them, I can never repay them. So, all of you devotees are very glorious because you have accepted Lord Chaitanya's philosophy. And not only have you accepted it, I can see that all you devotees are so fond of book distribution that you automatically want to do it. Nobody has to force you. Just like a hungry man is automatically attracted to food, all of you are naturally attracted to book distribution. So, Prabhupada was a great visionary. He was a perfectionist. All the 26 qualities that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described to Sanātana Goswami that we discussed today, all 26 qualities were found in Prabhupada. When Prabhupada came to your country and he spoke to Dr. Ǩaitanya, he very clearly told him. What did he tell him? He told him, if you want communism, communism has to be on the basis of the Shastras. Prabhupada had sure confidence that Lord Chaitanya's prediction that in every town and village this Krishna consciousness will come true. And Thakur Bhakti Vinod had predicted 100 years ago. What? One day the Russians will come, the Americans will come, the Britishers will come, the Germans will come, and the Bengal Indians, and they'll all dance together in Mayapur. So we should take to Krishna consciousness enthusiastically as our main goal in life. And if we take Krishna consciousness as the main goal of life, whether you're a housewife, whether you're a student, whether you're a brahmachari, whether you're a grihastha, whether you're a sannyas, you can adjust your life so that Krishna's orders are respected. So with these words, I'll end the discussion for today.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama